Boom ba 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 ch ch. Boom ba doom ba boom ba boom ba boom ba ba doo boom 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 ba boom boom. It's the Throttle Dogs with Rich Ha and CJ.
Hey guys, welcome to the Throttle Dogs. What's up? You're joined by me, Rich Ha, and my badass co-host CJ Wilson. Now, a little bit about us too. CJ is the ultimate car guy, mainly because he actually owns the cars we dream about, but also he happens to be an all-star professional baseball player who's married to a Brazilian model. His X-Men ability is a Stig mode. His weakness is lactose intolerance.
Yes.
I have that weakness too, but I have other weaknesses. And his bonus power is his hair. But in all seriousness, CJ is a down-to-earth guy who also happens to hold a production car lap record at Chuckwalla. That is a lot of words, like you said earlier.
Yeah, it's very wordy. Chuckwalla, you don't want to spell it, but it's out in the middle of the desert. So if you guys want to go sometime, let me know.
It is. And has a spec game that's second to none. Me, I'm not an athlete by any stretch of the imagination. I lettered in chess, science Olympiad, and math team. I did play tennis, man. I did play something athletic on the high school team. And no, I did not get a letter jacket. Where you went to high school, did anybody wear a letter jacket?
The football guys. And we all were like, we're in Southern California. It's not cold. What are you wearing a jacket for? It's like hoodies were in. If they would have done like Letterman's hoodies when I was in Orange County growing up, I would have been like, give me 3 of those things. Those are sweet. But I don't even think I got a Letterman's jacket, even though I played varsity baseball.
Well, dude, now it's letter Lululemon things. Right?
That's baller.
That should be.
Yeah. You want stretchy, you want form-fitting.
Maybe for my wife, not me, but I would rock a Lululemon lettered math team.
Yeah,
that'd
be legit. But the thing is, though, that what's the outfit? What's the math team outfit? Is it like a polo, or is it like you go skinny pants, like stretchy? I'm actually wearing Lulu pants right now. They're very stretchy. They're comfortable. And Lululemon, Dave Godo, if you're listening to us, like we are looking for sponsorship for the Throttle Dogs podcast, so hit us up.
Yeah, I don't know, but the logo should be like some sort of math equation, man. And it has to be...
But like a derivative, though. Like something...
Yes.
You have to have above the fractional line, below the fractional line. You need a sigma in there somewhere. You need some different notation,
Oh, man, you just took it to another level. So my lovely Korean wife calls me Dumpling and Kung Fu Panda. I eat Nutella like Tyrone Biggums eats crack.
Shazam, baby!
I drive well enough to put a semi-respectable lap, and I happen to use bright lights and cold steel to fix people's hearts. My X-Men ability, I eat a whole Nutella case in one sitting with just a half a baguette and a banana. My weakness is spicy foods. It sets my insides on fire, and later its exit on fire. My bonus power, karaoke.
Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Go-to karaoke song.
Well, there's a lot for me. I usually have
give me like a top 3.
My first one, that when I go to karaoke, I bring friends who've never done it often.
Oh, so.
And people are like really kind of nervous and they're sitting in the corner. They don't want, so we go to it's K-Town in LA we went to.
Yeah.
And it's usually one of those rooms, right? And, people are a little bit nervous. So I say, well, if I can go up there and do something kind of ridiculous, then people break out of their shell.
Right.
So I do Justin Bieber, Baby.
Wow.
Dead serious.
Song. I wouldn't have thought that you'd go right to that.
I'd go right to Justin Bieber.
YouTube sensation, Justin the Biebs Bieber.
Yes, exactly. And, because it has a little bit of a rap by Luda, and so I can do that part too. So I actually rap in karaoke. That's my thing.
Wow. So I think we need to change your X-Men ability to Nutella-related items and potentially mind-blowing karaoke, together. Because if you could rap and then baguette, Nutella in between, that'd be amazing. And half a baguette's not a lot to actually, you're going heavy Nutella.
That's right, man.
Per slice.
I mean, not many people can do that.
Right.
I have that mutation.
Right. So what are we doing here? What is Throttle Dogs?
Throttle Dogs.
Who are we?
Well, this is, and people have asked me, a couple of times, how did you guys come about this? How did you guys end up deciding to do Throttle Dogs?
And we met on the internet.
Yeah. So
on Instagram.
Right. And that, there's many people who come to me and say, or you read all the time, social media is antisocial. People don't make friends on social media. People need to go out and really make friends and so forth. And that's partially true. There are people who are, but honestly, like I've met a lot of people through social media, like you. I mean, who would have thought some heart surgeon goes and meets somebody who's like a super race car driver and a baseball player, And it's things like social media, Instagram, Facebook, that you can do that, and that's pretty cool.
As a tool, if you use social media correctly, you can connect to people that you would have no access to.
Right.
And you'd really be surprised,
Right.
like I would say, the accessibility that these, whether it's stars or strangers have, and that they're willing to give up
Right.
in order to be participating, because at the end of the day, you're
Right.
an enthusiast about a thing.
Right.
You're an enthusiast about a practice, about a community.
Right.
You're a part of a community.
Right.
And I think that's what's really neat about Instagram or, Vero, which is the kind of new thing that's sort of taken off.
Yeah.
And I mean, personally, like I've met people on Renlist. I met people on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And two of those guys were in my wedding. There were two of my groomsmen were guys that I met through the car community.
Wow.
And then through Twitter, stuff like that, that I just, felt like, oh, wow, this guy's really living his life the way I want to live my life.
Right.
I want to reach out to him
Right.
and say, I respect what you're doing.
Right.
I think your job is cool.
Right.
I think what you do is neat.
Right.
And then maybe can I come hang out sometime? Maybe
Right.
we should grab a burger.
Right.
Maybe we should go grab a burrito somewhere and see what happens. And, it's kind of funny when you take a step back and you look like, wow, like 7 years ago I met that dude on the internet, or I met this
Right.
person on the internet.
Right.
And then when you see somebody, because we do these car events where we go to track days and things like that.
Yep.
But I think it's track days and car events where, let's say, Pebble Beach or something like that, it has the potential to be really intimidating.
Yeah.
But if because I've seen pictures of your car,
Yeah.
and I see you standing by your car,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wait, that's
the
Rich.
Asian dude pose.
The Asian, low squat,
Exactly.
elbow on the knee.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfected that in high school.
Yeah. So I went to Fountain Valley High School, and it was like there's like a lot of lowered Acuras,
Right.
and a lot of, this was back in the Legend days and
Right.
the Integra. Like if you had a Type R or a Type R badge, more
Yeah.
importantly, you were like, you made it.
That was like having P1 in that community, man.
Right. Yeah. I mean, an 18-year-old kid with like a Type R, you were the shit. Like you were the best. So okay, we're just kind of like randomly talking about ourselves.
But how did this? We're recalling how Throttle Dogs came about, and I think that you and me were talking about partly like what we see and what we hear on social media. It's great. Some of that stuff is great.
But a general dissatisfaction with what we saw from our contemporary, just regular guys,
Yeah.
posters, but
Right.
then also the people that were trying to sort of celebritize themselves
Exactly.
as car experts.
Exactly.
Which is, to me, ridiculous, for some of
Exactly.
these guys, because they're spending other people's, I don't know, harvest or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
on somebody else's cars, and it's not necessarily accurate. I mean, that being said, I think there are some really good car personalities that are online.
Right.
Chris Harris, I like a lot.
Yeah.
I've always liked the former Top Gear, the show formerly known as Top Gear, the Amazing Race or whatever they're calling it, the
Right.
Grand Tour now.
Grand Tour, yeah.
So it's like, I know about you, maybe this is different for you, but it's definitely holds true for me that I've sampled so many of these cars now. I actually take these guys' advice pretty seriously.
Yeah.
And some guys I say like, okay, this guy likes cars and I don't like the cars that he likes.
Right.
So it's kind of like having a movie critic
Right.
or anything else.
Right.
If Chris Harris likes a car, generally I like the car. But
Right.
if there's some other guys that they could love a car and I'm like, that thing's a turd, I don't want it.
Right.
I'll drive it and I'll be like, oh, maybe he's right. I'm like, no, he's not right.
Yeah, there's a little bit of sense like, when you hear, or at least for me, like people will say this is an awesome car, they go out and say this is a great car, and then I drive it myself and it is totally horrible. Then
Yeah.
for me at least, it loses a little bit of credibility.
Right.
A little bit.
But the thing is that you have a different background,
Right.
than I do. You grew
Right.
up in the Midwest,
Yeah.
pulling out your CRX,
Right.
antenna with your bare hand in Minnesota.
Right.
I grew up in Southern California. My first car was a Mercedes diesel.
Yeah.
I was born in 1980, so
Right.
the cars that were just absolutely the balls back then, it was like the Testarossa, the 959, the F40,
Right.
and then all those race cars
Right.
from the 80s and 90s. And that's what I grew up idolizing,
Right.
know. And then
Right.
I think as a car collector now, the cars that I tend to fall in love with are the ones that came out when I was a kid, when I was in high school,
Right.
stuff like that. I mean, outside of the current, Hypercockster, Rockstar, Lamborgharis, Did I say that right?
No, man. It's Hypercockster McLambo Rari.
McLambo Rari.
Yeah. It's like
That's a mouthful.
Yeah. So we decided we were just going to partner up, and initially we were going to talk about something social media, maybe a little bit YouTube, and do stuff, and that's in the plans for later on. But the name was brilliant, and I remember you sent me about. I said, "Hey, what should we name it?"
It was like a text message, verbal diarrhea
it was
thing
like
where it just kept tumbling
1 a.m.,
out.
man. It was
Yeah.
like, and you just kind of listed a million, which you tend to do, because I remember one time I said, hey, what should I get for paint to sample? And all of a sudden there was like 40 different like suggestions. I was like impressed. But a bunch came out, and then this kind of stood out, Throttle Dogs. And like you said, we're not actually throttling dogs.
Right. No. This is we're both dog friendly. I have dogs at home. I love them. They sleep in my bed occasionally. But I think just kind of like the way that we think of ourselves as a couple of just blue collar dudes that, found some success with our jobs, and cars have been motivating for us for a long time. I wanted to have cool cars, and that's one of the reasons why I work so hard. The thing for me was I felt like I still haven't lost my roots as like a little hooligan, and that's, I think, to me, when I think of what would a throttle dog be, it's a guy that wants to drift his car a little bit, wants to do track days, wants to drive around, and is not a concourse, rub your car with a diaper and make sure it's okay. Like, it's a throttle dog is like, yeah, there's bugs on my car and maybe an empty In-N-Out burger wrapper or something like that on the floor. And, because I drive my car and I have fun, and I want to have fun with my friends that also have fun with their cars. Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's more of an everyday thing. And also, I mean, we're not always drifting cars around corners and stuff like that. So
No. Well, especially when there's cops around, because then we can get really in trouble.
Yeah. What's the format going to be? And I think, we're going to start off with podcasts. Obviously, we're going to have a social media aspect, Instagram, Facebook. And the podcast will generally be, we're not going to be super structured, just a conversation about cars, but obviously we'll have some things. There's some segments to it that we'll talk about with each episode. This is the intro episode, so we're just going to talk about the things, pertaining to what's going to happen and what we're going to do in the future.
So this is kind of a show about nothing, this episode.
Well, yes.
Right.
That's
been done the work
about
before.
The inaugural first Throttle Dogs. I feel like I need some Nutella and some, the Korean karaoke places they have.
There were snacks. We had snack props somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know where they are. I don't know. So maybe somebody dropped the ball on that, but
I dropped the biggest balls, not
there we go.
Nutella.
There we go.
So
we got your trail mix there. I know that you need to be fueled by chocolate and nuttiness. So
Thank you. By the way, just a shout out to Kirby Fong, is that Kirby's here to help shoot some things for us. That's from my wife. It's turkey jerky. So thanks to Kirby Fong. He's It's Curb Photography. He's here helping us shoot some cars and shooting the session here, the podcast session. So
somebody else who I've been following on Instagram for a couple of years now, finally getting to meet in person, seeing lots of cool shots at Sonoma, Thunderhill, the obscure airport runway shots. Like, where is that? It looks like it's at SFO on the runway somewhere. Alameda?
Yeah, Alameda, they're a naval base.
Got it.
He's got connections that I don't understand how he has, but he's an example also of how we were talking earlier about meeting on the internet.
Yep.
Basically we just kind of met through social media introductions and so forth.
Well, there's a legitimacy to it too, that a lot of people will hit you up when you have a cool car, whether it's your car, my car, or whatever. They'll say, "Hey man, can I borrow your car to go do a shoot?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if I look through there and it's like a bunch of Camaros and Mustangs,
right?
I'm not necessarily.
You're not going to give up the P1
comfy. Then? Yeah, I don't ever let anybody shoot the P1. Unless they just happen to catch me driving or whatever.
Right.
Just because, as a photographer, I feel like I've got to kind of harness the chi on that one and block everybody else out. Which is kind of why I ordered it.
Right.
But Curb's been shooting so many people for so many years that he's like, "Hey, I want to go shoot your 4.0 RS." I'm like, "That's cool, no problem." He's shooting your LT, whatever. We get a parking lot action or whatever.
Right.
He's got the resume. I know he's shot all these other people's cars, so I'm comfy with that. That's fine.
Right. Yeah. So
because of Instagram.
So we're going to have various segments. I think one of the things that I'm looking forward to is having a debate segment. We're going to call it Turn 1.
Okay.
And I kind of Turn 1 is because at least in Formula One, when you watch the first lap, it's really where you get the most fighting.
Yeah.
So
it's the most potential. It's where everyone's going to be the bunched. The bunch is going to try to funnel through there.
Exactly.
And you're sticking 20 cars in there, and only 8 come out alive.
Yeah. And the other things we're going to do, we're going to talk about the dog feed, which is some car news that we can talk about, especially when the auto shows come around and big reveals. Window Dog is kind of more of an in-depth review of the cars. that we drive and we own and so forth. And finally, we'll have a thing called Dog Years, which basically, the thing is about car podcasts and car in general. People just kind of talk about cars, which is great, and that's what we love. But I get a lot of, you probably get this a ton, I can't even imagine you, but for me, even me, with a certain number of followers, I've got a number of people who always message me saying, how do I get successful and how do I do this and how do
Right.
And, I think with you and me being, successful in what we do, it's good to share some life lessons for the listeners out there so they can come away with something more than just, that P1's awesome.
Right, because I think at the end of the day, like, you don't always put the full dose of reality on it on social media. I mean, there'll be times when you feel down. There'll be times when you have, as an athlete, especially, you have injuries, you have losses, and you're not going to like post this box score like, yeah, man, gave up 7 runs in 3 innings today.
Right.
All right. Thanks for the love, everybody.
Right.
So sometimes I think the biggest thing is that when someone's going through a difficult time in their life, to know that even the most successful people have gotten kicked in the nuts pretty hard.
Yes.
That it happens to everybody, happens to all of us.
Yes. So I think it's going to be great. In terms of what's the future for Throttle Dogs, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be not just a podcast. I think the start's going to be podcasting. But in the future, we're hoping to do some more stuff, like some videos and stuff like that, and see what happens.
Well, I've got access to cars.
You do have access to cars.
You've got access to the track.
I have access to the track. So one of the things, and it's not yet finalized, but we're hoping to get it finalized, is we're going to get some lap times at Sonoma Raceway, which I think is an amazing track. And obviously you're going to be the one driving the cars at the track, and I think it's good. And we're going to be able to compare cars to a certain extent. But like you said, maybe you can explain this a little more. It's not just, we're not going to sit there and have the manufacturers come out and like set the tire pressures exactly correctly. You just kind of do it in a real life situation.
Right, a survival scenario.
Yeah.
If you had to throw a lap down right now, what can you do in this car?
Right.
I think the thing is, for me personally, the way I look at it is there's all these really, really, really professional drivers out there, and they have the opportunity to get lots of time behind the wheel, get even the manufacturers to kind of coach them on certain systems or whatever. But what's intuitive about a car, and how do you extract a really high dose of the performance in a quick amount of time, and how do you do that? And that's another thing too that I think maybe we can talk through that and explain that, because I've had a chance to drive, I don't know, maybe 100 different types of cars over the years, and I've done all the different driving schools and stuff like that. And I think that breadth helps me a lot. I might not have the depth and some Formula One career or something like that, but having raced a little bit and having driven a lot of cars and done a lot of track days and driven on a lot of tracks, I feel comfortable hopping into almost any car now and putting laps together, and in a safe way where I don't end up on my roof.
Yeah.
But fast.
But fast.
And scary a lot of the times.
So is there, just a question, is there a car that you ever got into the first time you're like, wait a minute, how do I actually drive this car? Like, it's not like it, it's actually there's a lot of, the seating, the steering. Is there any car you've ever sat in there you're like, man, this is kind of an intimidating car to drive?
Yeah, I would say that the first time I drove the P1 was like that, because previous to that I'd driven a Carrera GT. Yeah. And the Carrera GT is still in a lot of ways a very normal car, because it has a stick shift and a clutch pedal, and you can kind of, it's got a regular engine, like it's got a big awesome, Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock solo guitar kind of engine. Yeah. But it's just an engine, whereas the P1 has all these systems, DRS, iPass, all the aero, the downforce. So the first day I drove it was in the rain. They're like, hey, we're going to bring you out to the UK, help spec your car out, and then you're going to go to the track, the Top Gear or whatever it was called, test track, Bruntingthorpe or something like that. Dunsfold,
yeah.
Something, something
I think
English.
they're eliminating the track too, anyways.
Yeah. So it's an airfield, and then you go there, and there's all these other guys that are getting, prospect guys. Right. And they're like, okay, so we're going to drive you around, and then you're going to drive the car. Right. I'm like, all right. And I just kept thinking to myself, like, I haven't paid for this car. All these other people want to drive it today. Yeah. There's not necessarily anything to hit, but it's got 900 horsepower. Right. So I could end up like way off the track real quick. And then it was raining, so that was a little bit weird. But that was the weirdest thing for me. And then the first time I drove a Carrera GT, it was utterly terrifying, and that was about 10 years ago or something like that.
Well, especially had a reputation going in pretty.
Yeah, and this was back in the day when they hadn't figured out the tire situation yet, because the original tires that came with the car were really brutal. They were terrible. Right. Same tires that were on the.
What were they?
They were Michelin Pilot Sports, but they didn't have. They had tiny little tread blocks,
Yeah.
like tiny little ones,
Right.
and they had like it was all sidewall.
Mm-hmm.
It was really a weird tire,
Mm-hmm.
and they heat cycled out too quick.
Mm-hmm.
So the 996 GT2 and the Carrera GT had a lot of similar snap oversteer, terrifying characteristics because they
Right.
were the same, like I would say, really below average tire.
Right.
And if you drive a Carrera GT on new tires now,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a puppy dog. It's way easier to drive.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone that's getting into one of those things now, they're paying twice as much money,
Right.
but they're also getting a car that's at least 80% safer.
Right. Right.
Rip Paul Walker.
Paul Walker, yeah. R.I.P. Paul Walker. So before we end the first episode, and already it's been awesome. What in terms of the listeners, and the future of Throttle Dogs, I think really one of the missions is to try to bring, like you said, an everyday voice to cars, but more importantly, try to figure out a way to kind of review them in a non-biased way. Unfortunately,
people have questions, right?
Yeah.
And through the Instagram page,
right.
we have a chance to answer, and
Right.
through the podcast, we have a chance to answer.
Exactly.
So it's really cool if you have a way of, if you're a guy that's 18,
Right.
you have 25 grand in your pocket,
Yeah.
you got straight A's, dad wants to buy you a car.
Right.
Like, what's the best car you can get?
Right.
You're right. That's a legit question.
That's a very legit question.
And your 18-year-old friends don't know shit. They don't know
Right.
anything because
Right.
they're 18. And
Right.
we were 18, and we made good and bad decisions, and learned
Come
from
on,
our
man, the CRX was a great decision.
learn from our mistakes. Learn from our mistakes.
Kirby's giving me a thumbs down.
We gonna bring it back? We're gonna bring the CRX back.
We're gonna maybe in one of our YouTubes we're gonna bring the CRX back and your Mercedes diesel back in a way that's unusual.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think that's great, and I think the other thing is just spreading the love, going out there and just letting people know that this is what we're trying to do, and trying to bring an everyday voice to cars. So that's really that's helpful in itself. So on the end, this is kind of the end of the first session. Any thoughts, CJ?
I feel like we didn't
Race
get anywhere.
Dog.
I feel like Dr. Dog. Doc Dog. I don't know if we got where we wanted to get
Dude,
to.
it's like almost 23 minutes. So
yeah, but that's like, if you're commuting in San Fran, that's like you're only a third of the way there.
that's true. Yeah. Well, no, it's exciting, and the next episode we'll be talking about the McLaren Senna.
We'll end with one question that I have for you.
Yeah.
Eating in your car, is it okay?
For me, it's okay and sometimes necessary.
Right.
Yes.
Because you have to really be in a hurry sometimes as a doctor.
Yes.
Sometimes you get that call.
Right.
So like in Doctor Strange, is it really like that you're speeding off somewhere and you're reviewing like files while you're driving, perhaps illegally, perhaps snacking on some sort of Nutella-laced sandwich?
I will say that I have, the Nutella little snack packets.
Yeah.
I have definitely had that while I was on my way in because, I only have a certain amount of time to eat. And I did do that. And it was in a sense, dangerous because I don't want to spill it on, because I have a 911 50th.
Yeah,
and it's
with
got the
Pepita.
The Pepita, and it's not like leather. Leather is a little bit more resistant. If you drop Nutella on that, it doesn't look good in the passenger seat. It's like, what's going on in the passenger seat, man? There's this brown smeary stuff there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
challenging.
It's challenging. So that was actually very challenging. I tend to think that I have some good hand-eye coordination, especially for what I do, but that took a lot. But yeah, I do. What about yourself?
Yeah, I eat in the car.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah, I do too many. I do like 30,000 miles a year, so I have to eat in the car. I drive between Fresno, Phoenix, Orange County, LA, San Francisco area. So I'm driving all the time. So I do eat in the car.
What's your favorite food to eat? Obviously, mine has already been announced.
I like In-N-Out Burger, man. I do In-N-Out Burger a lot. If I ever have to come down to LA, what I'll do is there's a stop right south of Bakersfield, like Tejon Outlets or whatever.
Right.
I know exactly what I do. I know exactly, like, to the cent what my order is going to cost. Get like a number one animal style with a, pink lemonade, no cheese. Lactose obviously is my weakness, but meat is not, and I love that animal style. So
how about this, man?
But in the car, think about it, like I'm in a P1 or something like that, or A8, whatever, any kind of random car that I'm in, and I'm knee driving, left leg knee driving, two
hands on the burger.
By the way, we do
not condone knee driving on any way, but in any case,
it's a closed road. It's a closed
in Mexico.
In Mexico, yeah. I only do this when I'm in Mexico.
Right. But I think in the future, if we've got to do. I want to see if you can manage a 6x6 from In-N-Out.
I've eaten an 8x8 before,
but while driving.
Right.
Man,
I'm gonna have to wear like a Long John Silver rubber fisherman outfit for that one.
Hey,
deadliest catch, burger style.
Well, all right. This is the end of our first episode, and CJ was awesome, and look forward to our future episodes. So thanks everybody for listening, and tune in for the next time for the next one.
It's the Throttle Dogs with Rich Ha and CJ.